Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to another cosplay tutorial. Today I'm making something a little bit different. It is a sword technically, but it's not a sword by itself. It's Trunks' sword, but it's just a sheath with a handle. So I want to state, right now that this is exactly like my Reinhardt's sword, which is not even a sword. It's just a 3D printed handle with a dowel down the middle and a full solid foam sheath. And that's it. There's no blade. That's because his blade never comes out, like in the anime anyway. In the light novel, I believe he used it once or twice. I don't remember. But it's a long story. Whatever. But so that one is just a handle and a sheath, just like this is just a handle and a sheath. There's no sword. You can't pull it apart. This, if you want to make the sword for this, I'm going to tell you why I'm not making it that way. But if you do want to make the sword, I have this soldier sword back here that's, I don't know how well I'm pointing at it or whatever, the gold and silver thing back there. That tutorial is exactly the same for the blade that you would use for this sword. Just follow what I did for the rest of this, or do it however you want, honestly, and then just use that and make it. That's how I would have made his sword normally. Or you could just make layers and sand it down to make the blade like you would any other sword. But this is actually, the reason I'm doing it like this is because I'm not using it as the sword. I would never take it out of the sheath anyway. And that's because this is actually a joke cosplay. It's not even like I'm gonna wear this one time and never again. And then this is just gonna like sit on my wall. And that's it. I'm never gonna use it again. So the reason though is because Trunks' voice actor, Eric Vale, is gonna be at SummerCon this year, 2024. So we wanted to go as his characters. So I'm gonna do Trunks. Atlas is going to do Diablo from How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, and Hardy is going to try to do Sanji from One Piece. But we're doing them as a joke because Eric Vale, the voice actor, is also one of the voiceover people that does the Dave & Buster's commercials. So what we're doing is we're going to be the characters in Dave & Buster's uniforms with some of their accessories. So like for Trunks, I'll have the wig and the sword. For Diablo, he's going to have the wig, the makeup on his, whatever the makeup is, the horns, and his cape. And then, I don't know what we're doing for Sanji yet. I think it's just going to be the wig, the eyebrows, a cigarette. But we're going to make it a lollipop because of the 4 kids thing. It's just funnier. So he wants to do that. And then he might wear a blazer, I'm not sure. And then we're going to have Dave & Buster's name tags that I'm making. I just made them in Inkscape. And we're just doing that for one day, and then we're never going to wear these again. So that's why I'm only doing it like this and not a full sword. So, I also do not have a pattern for this because, all my pattern pieces are over here, but do whatever you want. This is just I say it in the thing, it's just a rectangle with the end cut off, like rounded off. And then this, I just kind of made it whatever shape I wanted. If you can make a better one, that'd probably be a good idea, because mine doesn't look that great, but whatever. And then the rest of it is just PVC pipe and the rod and the pommel, and nothing special. So, but anyway, yeah, I should stop talking and get on to the actual tutorial itself. To start this build, I cut one layer of 10mm EVA foam to the dimensions and shape that I wanted, which is just a rectangle with the end rounded off. Like every other sheath for these type of swords that you see in any series. Then I traced the piece onto 2 more sheets of 5mm foam, and I only rough cut them out this time, with a lot of excess foam around the pattern. This makes gluing the pieces together a lot easier, and you'll see why in a bit. Next, I find the center line in the 10mm piece. This will be the center of the 3 layers, and where the metal pipe will go that I'm using for the core. This is actually a curtain rod with one threaded end, which is where the pommel will go, as this curtain rod's end piece looks really cool and it's the perfect size and shape to go with this sword. So I made sure to utilize that. I also used the long ruler to mark 1/4 of an inch on either side of the center line so that I can cut that entire piece out, almost to the tip, but not all the way, to make space for the curtain rod to sit. The rod is almost 1/2 inch thick, which is why I needed 10mm foam here, and why I cut out about that much from the center. To glue the center layer onto the 5mm sections, I used contact cement. This is the best glue to use for EVA foam, but the fumes are really bad, so please wear a respirator at the very least, and if possible, be in a room with good ventilation. When sticking the pieces together, I used a few scrap foam strips to keep the pieces from touching right away so I could line up where it needs to go. If it sticks too soon, you could mess up, and you can't fix it and would have to start all over again. Then all you have to do is cut off all of that excess around the pieces. Also, sorry it seems I ended up not getting footage of gluing the other layer on, but I think you understand what to do. So with that done, I'm moving on to the handguard. For this, I used a product called EVA Foam, which is far tougher than EVA Foam, and it seems to have some type of rubber in it or something. It's impossible to tear, I've tried, and it's super sturdy on its own. For this, I used 3 layers of 4mm, to add up to 12 millimeters. I would have used 2 layers of 6 millimeter, as that's the thickest you can get, but I didn't have enough of that. So I went with this instead. Honestly, 3 layers might actually be stronger anyway. So I contacted the layers together and then drew out the pattern that I thought was good enough on some paper. And I made sure to have a hole in the middle of it so that the curtain rod had somewhere to pass through. And before transferring the pattern to the foam, I used my hole drill that was 1/2 inch and put a hole in the foam with the pattern in place to make sure I still had a room for it to fit when I did this. Then I could line the hole back up and trace and cut out the guard out of the foam. And I did this just like I did with the 5mm foam earlier, where I left a lot of excess foam around it. This time it was so I could use the Dremel and sand down to the drawn lines. This gives me a much better clean look. And this would have been impossible to cut with the knife without screwing it up. You just need to go slow and try to keep the sanding drum tip as flat as you can so you don't accidentally sand at an angle. The 2 far ends are curled a little. They angle upward and have what seems to be sphere shapes at the end. I don't know. I didn't know how to best recreate this, so I just did what I could. I started by using a heat gun on the ends to soften the foam, and then bending them to have that angle that I mentioned. It's also a good idea to mention here that you should be very careful with this because it can get super hot and burn you. So it's best to press down on the table first and then let it cool down for a few seconds, but not all the way cooled down, so that it's safe to the touch, and then you can finish bending it with your hand. After that, I used halves of some DIY Christmas ornaments, which are actually the same things I've used in other props, like the shields from the Rising of the Shield Hero or the materia in my Cloud swords from Final Fantasy VII. And these are actually the same ones, like the same size, that I used in the Cloud swords for the materia. I cut off the little tab and sanded it down flush, and then pressed really hard to mark the spot on the foam. Then I could use an X-Acto knife to cut the groove out where that marking was, and I used 5-minute epoxy to glue them in place. Though you can also use super glue if you want. And I didn't do this because I forgot, but you should probably sand down around the edge there to make it more flush. I forgot to do that, so if you want to do that, do that. Next, I cut the curtain rod down to the size it needed to be, which I just used a hacksaw, easy. And then I used a grinding bit on the Dremel to make the cut edge not sharp anymore. I had the area where to cut it at marked already before I even glued the sheath pieces together, so I measured all that out beforehand. What I need to do now is thicken up part of it so that the PVC pipe I'm using as the handle can fit on it and not be loose. So I wrap a bunch of masking tape around part of the rod near the bottom where the by the pommel until the pipe fits in snugly. And honestly, I didn't even have to glue this handle on because I'm not using it as a regular sword prop. It's only a piece that's going to sit on my back, and I'll never actually touch the handle while it's worn. But if you are going to do that, then you can use Gorilla Glue or epoxy or something like that to glue this in place. And with all the pieces built and put together, here's what it looks like with everything so far. I just need details and paint and the straps, and also you can see that pommel piece that I mentioned earlier. For the details, I just cut out 1 layer of 2mm foam for each thing and glued them on with contact cement. For the tip of the sheath, this was just tracing the tip out and making it look like a cap. This is really hard to explain. I don't know what to call this, but it's a thing with a square cut out in it. You can see the pictures, and you can see what's on screen. And there's one for each side glued on. And then a single strip going along the bottom edge to make it look like this is a full thing around the tip. I don't know what else to say here for this. And the other side is just a strip of foam that it's either 1 1/4 inch or 1 1/2 inch. I don't remember exactly. And it's just long enough to wrap around the sheath. Also, I guess I forgot to record this too. I don't know why I keep doing this, but I used the Dremel around the edge before I put these detail pieces on so that all the layers were flat and flush and matched up on the sides. All right, so I figured I should probably just do this this way. It's a little bit easier, I think. Yeah, so I'm going to show you all the stuff that I've done so far. It's going to be kind of hard to show you because there's stuff in the way. I have a microphone right here. I don't want to hit it, things like that. But I am done with all of the painting, and I just need to add the straps onto here. So I'm going to tell you what I did for the painting, even though, honestly, it should be self-explanatory. It's just you paint it. So what I did was for the sheath here, which is still floppy as you can see, because the piece here will go inside it. But that piece and the handguard thing, I covered the plastic domes here, and then I covered the area where I'm gonna put the straps on here with green frog tape, or just any painter's tape, really, just whatever you want. And then I plasti dipped over all of that, and then on the end here, I had done both the handle, which is over here. It's done, but I'm not gonna take it off right now. And the end piece here, which is just a curtain rod end. And this is actually, it goes to this. This is a curtain rod, and this is the end that goes on it. So, and this still comes off if I really want to. I might epoxy that on, I might not, I'm not sure. But I painted those with gray primer. It's the same gray primer I use on everything. It's an automotive primer. And also the reason I'm telling you all this right now is because I can't get the camera outside to show you all of this. And it's just easier to explain this way than to have nothing showing and trying to talk about it. It's just better this way. And then once I was done with that, I took the handle and the pommel inside. Well, I painted this with silver, and then I took them inside, and then I painted the handle black, which is, like I said, over here. And right now, this is just a flat black, so I need to go over this. I'm probably going to go over it with the gloss black, and then just call it good. But I wanted to see how I could darken it the best I could before I did that, before I used gloss, and I just used this stuff. So I'm just going to do the same thing, but with the gloss. It's whatever. And then once everything with the plasti dip was dry, I was able to go back with that same primer that I just used on everything else, and I went over the entire thing, both pieces. Oops, knocked over stuff. Both pieces with that primer, and then I was able to go over it with paint. So I used silver on here, and when I used the primer, I took the tape off of the dome pieces here to do this. They don't look as good as I wanted them to. They're not seamless or anything, but this is as good as it's gonna get. From a distance, it should look fine, but it's not perfect what I wanted, but it's whatever. But yeah, so that's how I did that. And then for the rest of this, after I did all the gray, I painted the entire thing with a satin red, and then I masked off where I wanted the two silver ends to be, and then painted that with the same gray again, because the silver wasn't going to cover over the red. So I had to go back over it with the primer, and then back over that with the silver, so now it matches the rest of it. And it's not a perfect match either, because it's just all the colors mixing and everything is not perfect. And it could be a brighter silver, to be honest, but it looks fine the way it does. And then after that, I went over everything except for the handle with a clear coat, with a matte clear coat, because that looks more metallic. That'll give it more of a metallic shine rather than a glossy shine, which I don't want. And I was debating wrapping the handle, but I decided against it. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to be touching the handle. It's going to be sitting on me the entire time, so I'm not worried about it. Anyway, yeah, and then now all we do is put it together, and I might as well put it together with this. No, I'm going to actually paint. I hate the way flat matte colors feel like this. Like, ugh. It's got that scratchy chalkboard feel to it. So I'm going to go over this with gloss first, and then when I'm done with that, I can show you putting all of it together, and then we'll talk about the straps when I get the fabric. It's just, I'm just using vinyl, I'm making straps, and then I'm making my own buckle. You'll see in just a moment. Alright, so here's putting the entire thing together. Obviously, like I said, this comes off, but we're going to keep that on. And then we got the handle here. I'm going to go this way. This side has black on the end here, this side doesn't. That makes it so this side will easier. If I want to glue it down to the handguard, I can. I'm probably not going to, but I could if I wanted. And then put this back on. So there's the handle and the pommel. And then take the handguard, put that on there. Now this will eventually get glued down into place. And then take the sheath, a little difficult, put that like that. And there we go. Push it all the way down. Oh, that didn't, that keeps happening. I don't know why. There we go. And bam! We have Trunks' sword in the sheath. And now to move on to the straps. This is just a blue vinyl that I got on Amazon, and I'll link it below. To make this, all I have to do is cut out strips wider than I need them and fold the ends in. I use these sewing clips when I work with vinyl because these don't leave holes like pins do, as well as many times pins are harder to push into this stuff. And you can see what I'm doing here. I don't have to explain much. You just fold the ends in to make the size you want. And for me, since this strip that I'm working on right now just happens to be larger than I need for both straps that wrap around the sheath, I can just cut this in half and have both of them already. Then I just sew the folded edges down on my sewing machine. I usually put these pieces back to back where the sides with the folded edges are touching to make it 2 layers thick, but I decided I didn't need it for this. I think it actually looks better this way. Plus, nobody can see the backside anyway, doesn't matter. And I do this exact same thing for the straps that go around your body, except you can see on the ones that I'm working on, they don't overlap each other. The ends that are folded don't overlap each other. I made them overlap on the other ones. It's just what I did. All right, so I did a few things off camera. You'd seen that I made these little straps here. These straps are 1.5 inches, I believe. Yes, 1.5 inches. The grid here tells me what size they are because each square is 1 inch. Makes it easy. So these ones are the ones that wrap around the sword thing, the sheath thing itself. And then these bigger straps, these are 1.75 inches. So 1 3/4 inches. And these are going to be the belt that goes around your body. So they're just a little bit bigger by 1/4 inch. And on one of them, so you can see here, you can't see actually, but one of them is a little bit longer than the other. That's going to depend on what fits around you and where you want the buckle to go. I was going to do this differently and make it like snap or Velcro together or something, and then have like a foam buckle that was fake, because he has red in the middle of the buckle. I can do that by sewing red onto this piece that goes inside the buckle and making it look like that. If I want to, I'll do that later. If I don't, then I don't really care. It's not a big deal. This is just a joke cosplay anyway. I don't need it to be perfect. This would be good enough for anybody else who's cosplaying him. If you don't care about extreme accuracy, that's totally fine. But this buckle is a little smaller than I thought it was. It's like 5/8, I think, which is just barely, I believe that's just barely under 3/4. So it doesn't fit in perfectly, and I didn't realize that. The other buckles I normally use, which are the big square silver buckles, this is a gunmetal. The other ones are those silver ones. You've seen me use them before. If you've seen some of my other tutorials that need buckles, like my Persona harness that uses straps like this, also used one of those. That would fit this. That's what I was going for. Turns out I don't have any. This is the only thing I have that fits it. So it's going to have to work. And this is really, really stiff too. So anyway, so this is going to go in. And this is only one layer as well. So it's just one layer folded over. But I did it like this, where it overlaps itself. So it has some thickness to it without having to do a second layer. Normally with this stuff, I will do this, have one here, and then I'll have a second one on top, and then I'll sew those together and have one thick one. Didn't want to do that for this. That's way too much work for a joke cosplay that I'm going to wear once. But this goes in like so, just like a regular belt, buckles up, and goes through the other end, and looks like that. Now it doesn't look great, obviously, and that's why I really don't want to put the red in here, because it bunches up like this, and I don't like that. So the red will probably just accentuate that, and I don't want that. But that way it looks like this, and it's going to be like this across the body, where this one goes over the shoulder and then comes through here. So on the actual sheath, this is the top piece, so I'll do it on the top side. So it's going to go like this, where this goes around here. And I can tell which side is which because I have covered it in pin marks because I was pinning it all together. So I'm lining it up so that I can tell that it's over the non-painted part on the other side. It's going to go over like this, as tight as I can. Make that tight. This piece will go upside down right here on the end of this. And it's going to get sewn down to the top flap. So it'll be like this, which will be much better. But it goes like this. And then that's going to be all glued down. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to get this on camera, but I'm going to glue it down all the way with 5-minute epoxy. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And then when that's done, it's done, and I just got to glue the handle in, and then you just put them together and it should work. That should be good. And I did do it like this with pins in it. Like I said, there's pinholes to test out how it fits, and that's how I figured out what size to do. So you're gonna have to do that a lot. If you can get somebody else to help you, that would be great, because it'd probably go a lot faster than having to keep pinning it over and over again. But it only took a few tries, and I finally got it. So with the cut end on the bottom here like this, where it overlaps like that, that's what I want, and that's the perfect measurement for both pieces when they go over, and I can tell kind of where this sits, where it'll be perfect, where it covers the unpainted section, and then I'm good. And this is going to be really annoying to keep down, so I'm gonna just hope it stays, and I really hope that the epoxy works. So, but that's the next step. Just jumping in here real quick near the end, just to mention how I ended up doing this a little differently than I said. So as you can see, it's now an L shape or whatever. It's sewn to this, and these two corners are sewn together. This is the body strap, the one that goes over your body, and obviously this one down here goes around here. So I said I was going to do it sew it to the top side when it goes over, so that would be like that. I don't like that. I like that. Instead, this will stay in place a lot better. So I decided to put it on whichever one I was going to put at the bottom. So I'm going to have it, when this side is up against my body, these will go over this way. And so when it's on, the way it's angled, these will point down. That way, gravity can't be pulling at it if it was the other way. So if it was this way, gravity could pull all of this and possibly rip this up if it gets snagged on my back, or if it gets snagged anywhere else, like in the car or something, which I can't really stop that. But while it's on my back, it'll make it so it doesn't have any reason to get pulled on, so that it stays in place. And then so I did that to the other side too, so it folds over this way at the end, so that when it's upside down, or on, so it'll be like this when it's on. So if that makes sense. It just makes it just better. I don't know the word. It makes it so that the gravity isn't pulling down on a strap facing up. You know what I mean? So here, let's just do it this way. So if it's this way, gravity pulls this like that. You see how that's a pivot point where it can peel apart right here? Epoxy's not the most amazing stuff in the world. There's nothing that'll keep this on perfectly. So it's better to not have this happen. When this is here, there's nothing to pull down. This won't be pulled up. That's not possible. So it's not going to be a problem. That's just how I got around that. So it's going to do that on both sides and then cross over. And now I'm just going to epoxy it. I'm going to use some 5-minute epoxy. So yeah, I did that. Though before that, I used a pencil on the back side of the strap to mark where it's best. When it's laid down like this, you can see what I'm doing, to make sure that it's still centered once it's wrapped. And then that way I could glue down that bottom side first, and then fold it over to that is technically the back side, where the straps are meeting up at each other. That's the back side. So that's how that went. And in case you don't know, since I don't think I explained it, 5-minute epoxy is a 2-part glue that comes in a double syringe thing, and when you press the plunger, it dispenses both liquids, which are different colors, and then you mix it until it's one color. And then after that, you have 5 minutes or so before it starts the curing process, so you have to work pretty fast. And that's why I made sure to have all these markings and stuff to line everything up ahead of time, so that I didn't have to do that after I already mixed the glue. Then I just spread the glue on with the same brush I used to mix it with, putting glue on both the sheath and the strap, and then pinned it in place until it cured. The last step was to glue the handguard to the sheath by scoring the foam and supergluing them together. Alright, so that is it for the Trunks sword sheath tutorial thing. Sheath with a handle, I guess. I also did not glue the rod in. Doesn't really matter. So this can actually move around and everything, but the handguard is glued in place, so I don't gotta worry about it. I'm never gonna grab it with my hand, so it doesn't really matter, and no one else is, because it's just gonna sit on me. So this is what it's gonna be like. So it goes just like that. And yeah, it's super light, nice and easy to carry around. The only problem is sword things like this do that a lot. So I have to kind of continuously do that, which is annoying. But it's what you have to do with these kind of things, or they just don't sit on you correctly. So it's just, that's fantasy for you. They don't do things correctly. So, but yeah, so that's that. And yes, I could take it on or off by unbuckling the thing, but why? Why would I bother doing that when I don't have to? But yeah, so this is the end of the tutorial. So if you like it, go ahead and give it that thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys later.